Good evening. We're going to be learning tonight Maseches Shabbos Taf Kuf Chav Hey and Kuf Chav Vav Amud Aleph, and we're starting about 3/4 of the way down on Kuf Chav Dalet Amud Beis, wrapping up in one sugya and beginning in another. So we are right now at the line that says Tani Chada. It's toward the end of the line, about 3/4 of the way down toward the end of the line there. It says Tani Chada. Masikin b'kelim ve'ein masikin b'shivrei kelim. This is a discussion by Hilchos Yantif. Are you allowed to use, just to pin my video here. So the Gemara here reads in regards to this machlokes by masikin kelim. It says Tani Chada masikin b'kelim, that we are allowed to use for fuel that which has the status of a kli. Ve'ein masikin b'shivrei kelim, but you cannot use for fuel on yantiv. You cannot use for firewood that which is shivrei kelim. V'tanya idach, a different brayso writes, Geshem shemasikin b'kelim, just like one is allowed to use regular wood that is a regular kli, so too kach masikin b'shivrei kelim, one can also use as firewood even broken pieces of a kli, what used to be a kli, no problem at all. The Tanya Idach, and still a third shita on this topic, says, Ein masikin lo b'kelim lo b'shivrei kelim, you can't use either of them on yantiv for fuel, for firewood. And the Gemara here wants to understand how this all works out. And the Gemara answers with a classical response, Harav Yehuda, Harav Shimon, Harav Nechemia. And if you spend time looking in Rashi, you'd be able to attribute each of these shitas of the Tanaim to their respective shitas in regards to whether or not we are allowed to use fuel, either kalim or shivrei kalim, and all the iterations are the three different braysos. And one of these shitas is Rabbi Yehuda, one is Rabbi Shimon, and one is Rabbi Nechemia. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, Hani livnei de ishtior mi binyana shari letil tulinhu. Let's say you have extra bricks from a house project. Someone's doing a house project. There's extra bricks lying around. You're allowed to use them to chazu lemizga alayhu, because you're able to rest on them. You're able to take a seat on them. So that's considered to be a permissible activity. You're allowed to take those bricks. However, sharginhu, if these bricks were organized in a particular way, and it was then clear that they were not really meant to be extra, but that they were going to be used for building, so then vadai aktzinhu. Let's say that you see someone has, like one of those, they have this like lattice in front of their house where people are building on their house, and there's 20 bricks sitting on a board right at the level where there's no bricks yet. So obviously they're going to use those bricks to build. That's going to be muksa, even if you wanted to sit on them. That's not okay. If there were some scattered bricks around, then that would be permissible to use, as long as they are chazi lemizga alayhu, that you can sit on them. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, cheres ketana. What if you have a small piece of pottery, a shard of pottery? Mutter l'taltel b'chatzer, you're allowed to pick it up in a chatzer. Aval b'karmelis lo, but you're not allowed to, it's considered muksa in a karmelis. Now I want to be clear here. We're not talking about carrying. We're not talking about carrying in a karmelis. That's its own isur d'Rabbanan. We're talking about tiltul, about muksa, whether or not there's a status of muksa even standing still in a karmelis or in a rishus harabim. So shita number one was Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel is Rabbi, that a cheres ketana you can move in a chatzer, but you're not allowed to move in a karmelis. For Rav Nachman Didei, Rav Nachman, who was the Talmud of Shmuel from a line ago, had his own opinion. He felt afilu Amar afilu bekarmelis. You could even move this cheres, this small shard of pottery, you can even move this in a karmelis, that's fine. Aval b'rishus harabim lo, but outside in a rishus harabim, you're not allowed to use it. And then the last shita is v'rava amar afilu b'rishus harabim. And Rava says if you're standing still and you're not going to violate carrying dalal amos b'rishus harabim or switching from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid, it's permissible to use a shard of pottery. How so? Because the Rava l'taimei, Rava follows his own shita. And there's precedent within the world of Rava. The Rava have a ka'az of the riska de mechoza. Rava was traveling through a shopping area in mechoza. Isvasei misane tina. Misane are shoes. Isvasei is they got gross. Tina is dirt. So his shoes got very dirty. So what happened next? Asa shame, his servant came over to him. Shakal chaspa. He grabbed a piece of cheres, a piece of pottery, and v'kam mechaper lein. He was cleaning off his Rebbe's shoes. An interesting use of the word mechaper. Some of the Meforshim point out that when we say that we want Hashem to be mechaper our averos, this is the language that's being used. Mechaper, you're taking this thing and you're scraping the mud off your shoes. So to HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be mechaper, should scrape off all of our avonos. Interesting use of the word mechaper here. Anyways, what we see from here is that Rava is of the opinion that if you are in Rishus Harabim and your shoes get dirty, you can pick up a shard of cheres and clean off your shoes. If they get dirty, not a problem at all. Ramu Bey Rabbanon Kala. When the Rabbanon in the community heard that Rava was willing to take a shard of pottery and clean off his shoes, they raised their voices in protest. They said, Rava, what are you doing? Answers the Gemara. He says, Rava said to them, Omar, lo mistaya de lo gmiri. It's not enough that you don't even know what you're talking about. It's not enough that you're not learned. Rashi here points out that you don't know the difference between that which is usher and that which is mutter. Not only do you not know that, but migmar nami migamar, you're going to walk around raising your voice and telling people how you feel about it. You don't know what you're talking about. So I don't understand what you're kicking and screaming about. And Rava continues his argument. Ilu b'chatzer havoy, had I been standing in a chatzer and my shoes were dirty, I'd be able to pick up a shard of pottery and clean off my shoes. Milo hava chazir l'chasui b'mana, would I not be able in a chatzer to use that shard of pottery for something meaningful? Hachanami, here too in a rishus harabim chazir l'didi. By me, it's considered reasonable. And that's how Rava pushes back against it. Next case, 5 lines from the bottom on Kuf Chav Daled Amud Beis. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Megufas Chaves Shenichsesa. If the covering of a barrel breaks off, so the din is muter l'taltel b'Shabbos. It's permissible to carry it on Shabbos. Tanya Nami Hachi, the Brisa supports this. Megufas Shenichsesa. If there is a covering of a barrel that gets broken off, Hi ushvareha muter l'taltel b'Shabbos. It and its broken pieces are all allowed to be moved on Shabbos. Says the Gemara below, Yispos mimena shever lechasos boes hakli. You're not allowed to reshape or kind of finish off the this particular broken thing to make it functional again to cover another kli. V'lismoch bakari amita, or to use it to be a support under one of the legs of your bed to make the bed even. And then the Gemara says a very strange din in the name of this brisa. V'imzarka be'ashba aser. The Gemara says once you throw something in the garbage, then it has the din of muksa. Really? You throw something in the garbage, it becomes muksa. It's very strange. So it says the Gemara as follows. Maskif la Rav Papa elamayata. If that's true what you're saying, that if you put something in the garbage, it becomes muksa, would you also say zarakli legalime hachanami de aser? You throw out a piece of clothing and then all of a sudden, it's going to be muksa? That's ridiculous. Of course not. Because what do we know about muksa? Muksa is only muksa if it wasn't muchan from before Shabbos. But because this was muchan before Shabbos and you just threw it out, that doesn't make it inherently muksa. That's not the way muksa works. Muksa is a 24-hour status. Whatever happens during Ben Hashmashos is what applies throughout the Shabbos itself. So it says Gemara Elo Amar Rav Papa. Therefore, we pivot a little bit and we say no. When do we say that something in the garbage is going to be muksa? That if you throw something in the garbage from before Shabbos, then once Shabbos kicks in, then that thing is going to be considered asura. Then it's muksa. However, that's not the case if it was thrown in the garbage on Shabbos. Let's say you threw something in the garbage, v'nimlach, and then you wanted to change your mind. No problem. You can take it out of the garbage. Top line, Gav Kufchav Hey Amar Aleph. Let's push through. Amar Bar Hameduri Amar Shmuel. Krumis shel machatzeles, if you have, it's a mat that's kind of torn into shreds. So in those cases, well, what about those shreds? Are they allowed? So the din is mutter l'taltal b'Shabbos, no problem. My time, well, what's the reason why it's allowed? Third line, Amar Rabba Bar Hamduri Asber Ali. I can explain it as follows. Machatzeles kufa l'maychazia. What was the whole point of the mat in general? What do we do with mats? Simple. L'chsuye ba'afara. We use it to cover up dirt. You go on a picnic, you want to sit on something, you put it down. So fine. Hani nami chazia l'chsuye batinofes. These torn strips of fabric from the mat also have a purpose. They can also be put down in a meaningful way to cover up dirt. So therefore, even though the mat used to be a mat, now it's all torn up, but you can use up these torn parts of the mat because they have a function. They're still begeder kli. Amar Reb Zera, really, is that true? Amar Reb Zera Marav, Shiare Prozmios. What about the remnants of a talis that's torn up into pieces? There we say Asr l'taltal on b'Shabbos. So why do we make a distinction between a mat that's torn up where we say it's mutter, there's no Isser Tiltal, Mashen Kein talis, there is an Isser Tiltal? How do we make such a distinction? Amar Abaye answers, B'matlonios Shein Ben Shalosh Al Shalosh. When do we say that it's usher. It's when it's just so small. It's not even begeder kli, and there's no use for it. And then it adds in the Gemara right before the two dots to lo chazyan lo la'anim lo la'ashirim. These types of very, very small garments, they're less than 3 by 3 tefachim. They're tiny. They're tiny. So those types of things are not allowed to be used if they're all torn up from a talus. Tanu Rabbanan, about 10 lines down on Kuf Chav Hey, Amud Aleph. Just for framing, these next few lines need to be understood clearly to understand the next 30 lines. So let's just hold cup. It's not a difficult machlokas, but there's a degree of nuance, and we need to make sure that we understand it as it relates to the three different approaches that we're going to see to try to explain this Tosefta. I believe it's a Tosefta. Yes, it is. So here's what the Tosefta writes here, 10th line. Tanu Rabbanan, Shivrei Tanur Yashan. Let's say that you have an old oven that's broken into parts. Harei hein kechol hakelim hanitlin b'chatzer divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir was of the opinion that you are allowed to carry it on Shabbos, no problem. The pieces, the broken pieces of the oven. Reb Yehuda Omer ein nitlin. This is the machlokas. Reb Meir says that the broken pieces of an oven are mutter to be moved, and Reb Yehuda holds that they're usher. This is the part. It's simple to. It's not a lot of information. We just need to understand it clearly. I'll reference this a lot. So when I say a little bit later, let's look back at the Tosefta. I'm referencing the Tosefta here at these two dots. Let's continue the last part of the Tosefta. Hey, Rabbi Yossi Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Yossi testified in the name of, or not the name of, but he said about Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov al Shivrei Tanur Yashan Shenitlan B'Shabbos, like the sheet of Reb Meir that we saw, the lenient opinion. And he also added another din that we'll focus on later today, but not right now. Ve'al Kisuyo She'eno Tzarech Beis Yad, that covers don't need to be handles, don't need to have handles in order to have a din of a kli. We'll discuss that piece later on. Okay. What is it that Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir are arguing about in regards to Shivrei Tanur? So Rav Meir was of the opinion that if there are Shivrei Tanur, so then the din is, if there's broken parts of a Tanur, so then the din is that it's Nitlan B'Shabbos B'Chatzar, no problem, you can carry it. Rav Yehuda said we're makbid. Why was one makbid and one not? 3 lines before the wide lines. First answer, 1/3 of the way down. Amar Rabbi Be'osin Be'ein Malacha Be'ein Osin Me'ein malachton kimiflage. As we learned yesterday, when there are shivrei kelim, so if the shivrei kelim can function within any frame of malacha, that's the shita of Rav Meir. Rav Meir would say that as long as it can be useful in any way, shape, or form, then we still say that it's me'ein that malacha. Mashein Ken, Rav Yehuda was of the opinion, me'ein malachton. It has to be that when there are shivrei kelim, when something breaks, that the shivrei kelim can do what the initial kli was intended to do. Not any malacha, but specifically the malacha that was intended. So that's the machlokas here between, according to Abaye, between Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda, that Rav Meir was of the opinion that as long as it's functional at all, then it's still going to be considered a kli, in which case it's mutter to move. Masha'en Ken, Rav Yehuda was of the opinion that when we say that there are shivrei kelim, only when it's able to do that which was initially intended to do, that's when we say that it is a kli. But here, that's not the case. These shivrei kelim were not doing their initial malacha. Be'az Rav Yehuda l'taimei v'Rav Meir l'taimei, as I just explained, each of them reflect on their own reasons in order to support their own opinions. But then the Gemara is bothered by this. I don't understand. Maskifla Rava. Rava is asking against Abaye. Remember, Abaye's answer number 1. He said, what were we dealing with here? That our case, what was the Tosefta dealing with? Shivrei, look at the line there by the 2 dots, Shivrei Tanur Yashan, a broken oven, an old broken oven. So Maskifla Rava, the first of the long lines, if the Tosefta is speaking about a case where it's Shivrei Tanur, where there's something that's broken, if that's what we're talking about, then liflagu b'shivrei kelim ba'alma. Then I don't understand. Then their machlokas should be about shivrei kelim in general. Why was the Tosefta specific to speak about a broken oven? After all, it doesn't really make a difference. If their machlokas, like Abaye said, is just about whether or not the broken pieces can do that which was initially the intention of the kli or not, then why does it have to be a broken oven? Rava is picking up on the language of the Tosefta that there's something happening here with the oven that is important. And therefore, Rava gives us his own answer, rejecting Abaye, though we will soon see that we come back to Abaye's answer. But here's answer number 2, second of the widest lines, just about the middle of the page. Amar Rava, b'shivrei dahai tanur kemiflage. We're speaking about a very specific tanur, a very specific type of oven. What was the case of this oven? Ditnan, as the Mishnah writes. Nasno al pi habor o al pi hados. V'nasan sham even, you have an oven, and their ovens were, in effect, they were inverted metal garbage cans, and they would light a fire underneath them, and then it would be heated enough to cook on the top or to cook on the sides. So here what happened was is that it wasn't sitting well. So what you did is you would take a rock, the nasan sham even, you take a rock, and that rock would then support the rest of the oven, the rest of that inverted garbage can that you would heat from underneath, in order to make sure that you put the rock there to make sure that the oven was sitting properly. And here's the machlokas. Rav Yehuda Omer imasik milamatu v'nisuk milamala. If in fact when we light the fire underneath the can, that all of the heat goes into the top of that can so that you can cook at the top, then good. Then it's still considered a kli. It still has the status of a kli, and then that's going to be totally fine. V'im lav, and this is unique to Rabbi Yehuda, tahor. But if in fact that's not the case, if the heat doesn't go where it's supposed to go, namely if the oven is not functioning like it should because some of the heat is escaping, so then tahor, then it doesn't have the din of a kli anymore. Mashe'ein kain, according to the Chachamim, the Chachamim omrim, hol v'husak mikol makom tameh. As long as it's being used be'erech, approximately how an oven is supposed to be used, and that we add heat in order to cook food, so then we would still say that it's tameh. So the nafkamina is whether or not the heat goes in a classic way where it fully heats up the whole utensil, or it's a lesser version of that. So this is how Rava rejects Abaye. This is how Rava explains his case, where because the language of the Tanur was unique in the Tosefta, he therefore had to build his answer about the machlokas between Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda around that case of the Tanur. Very good. What were they arguing about, Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Meir, in regards to this type of oven, this oven that's being supported by the rock? Says the Gemara, Behaikra, they were both based on the following pasuk. The pasuk reads, Tanur v'chiraim yutatz tmeim heim, utmeim yulachem. That's what the pasuk says. Tanur v'chiraim yutatz, it needs to be broken. In tmeim heim, it will be tamei. Utmeim yulachem, it should be tamei to you. And here we have a machlokas in the Tanaim between Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda and the Chachamim, in regards to this case of this pasuk. So what does Rabbi Yehuda say halfway down? Rabbi Yehuda savar mechusar netitza tameh. When it's not broken, when the oven is not broken, so that it has a status of tameh. It's a real kli. It's makabel tuma. We would say that it's tameh. However, shein mechusar netitza. This language is just it's a double negative. When it isn't missing being broken, namely when it is broken, so then it loses its status of the kli, and therefore tahor. And that's how they understood the pasuk. Mashein came v'rabbanon sarei tmei milachem. The pasuk says it's going to be tameh to you mikol makom. No matter what, it's going to be tameh to you. Well, no matter what iterations, Rabbi Yehuda, you want to inject, we're going to still assume that this is going to be a kli that's makabel tuma and it's going to be tameh. So what do both the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda do with each aspect of their drashos? We just quoted this pasuk, and there are parts of this pasuk that work for the Rabbanan and parts of this pasuk that work for Rabbi Yehuda, so they're both going to have to answer. The Rabbanan nami haksiv yutatz. We see that the pasuk says the word yutatz, which means that it needs to be broken down, implying that there's a distinction between an oven which is broken and an oven which is not, which is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. So what did the Rabbanan do with the language of yutatz in the pasuk? Answers the Gemara, this was to remind you of the other extreme. And what was the other extreme? As follows. I might have thought, since the oven is somewhat connected to the ground, I might have erroneously thought that because it's somewhat connected to the ground, it's, as we call in the learning world, mechuber lakarka, and because it's mechuber lakarka, it can't be makabel tuma, and because it can't be makabel tuma, so therefore it should be tahor. So it says the Gemara, Kamash Malan, the Rabbanan says that the word yutatz comes to teach us that any oven that's attached to the ground, this oven is not with the rock in it, is not treated as mechuber lakarka, and it is still makabel tuma. That's what he uses the word yutatz for. Now, v'idach, what about the Rabbanan? V'idach nami haksiv, Rabbi Yehuda, what are you going to do about the fact that the Rabbanan have to rely upon the fact that the pasuk says tmeim yulachem, which implies that under all circumstances you're going to be tameh? So which one is it? Answers the Gemara, Hahi Kid Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. That goes according to Yehuda Amar Shmuel. What does that mean? Damar Yehuda Amar Shmuel Machlokas Behesek Rishon. The whole Machlokas, according to this sheet of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, was in regards to the Machlokas of when it was being lit for the first time this oven was used. it's kind of like, breaking the champagne on the bow of the ship. Like it's the first time it's being used to set it up to be that thing. Until you've used it, is it a kli? If you've never used an oven, is it a kli? So that's what the Gemara says is going on here. It's machlokes behesek rishon. The machlokes between them is whether or not during the first use it becomes tamei or not. Rabbi Yehuda says it doesn't become fully tamei yet. Masha'ein kain, according to the Rabbanan, it does. And therefore it's makabel tuma. Aval behesek sheni, but the next time you use it, and all the subsequent times that you choose to use this oven, afilu taloi v'tzavar gamal, even if it's hanging on the neck of an animal, which is just a metaphor to say that it's portable and to say that it's therefore muksa, then and everyone agrees that that's the case. Says the Gemara, Amar Ula, wait a minute, behesek rishon the Rabbanan afilu taloi v'tzavar gamal. Even the first time that a person lights it, we said that there was a machlokes in regards to the first use, and everyone agreed by the second. The Rabbanan seem to say it's very pashut in regards to the Hesek Rishon as well, that afilu taloi v'tzavar gama, that it would be portable, and therefore, even if it's going to be its first use, we will treat it as something which is makabel tuma, and that's Rabbanan l'shitasam, which is that they treat it like a kli. They treat it like a kli. Good. Maskifla Ravashi. Ravashi asks a question. So now what we've had so far is our machlokes of Meir and the Rabbanon, we had at our Tosefta, a machlokes of Meir and a machlokes of Yehud in regards to Shivrei Tanur Yashan. We had Abaye's answer that it just depends on whether or not the Shivrei Kalim can fulfill its original purpose or whether the Shivrei Kalim can fulfill any purpose at all, which is fine. And then we rejected that, and then we came to this new answer of Rava, which says that we're talking about this special case where there's a rock supporting the oven. But Ravashi doesn't like this either. Maskif Ravashi, I don't understand. Ihachi, if what you're saying is true, at the miflage b'shivrei tanur, we're still talking about shivrei tanur. Liflagu b'tanur gufa. They should have argued not about shivrei tanur. They should have argued about the tanur itself. In other words, Ravashi is saying, Rava, I like your overall direction. I like that you picked on Abaye because Abaye's case didn't require the discussion of an oven at all. Abaye's case only really required a discussion of shivrei kalim. So fine, Rava, you pivoted and you went to a discussion about a tanur. But says Ravashi to Rava, he didn't talk to Rava, they didn't live in the same generation. Rava was a 4th century Amora, Ravashi was a 6th century Amora. They were probably a good 50 plus years apart from one another. I guess they could have seen each other. But either way, Ravashi's question against Rava is, I don't understand. The case of the Tosefta speaks about Shivrei Tanur Yashan. But according to you, Rava, we don't need it to say Shivrei Kalim, Liflagu b'tanur gufa. It should have been a case where the oven was not broken, because the case we were dealing with was, like Rava said, was this special oven where it was being supported by a rock. So therefore, Ravashi doesn't like answer number 2, doesn't like the answer of Rava. Ella, therefore, 3/4 of the way down, making some headway on Kuf Chav Hey Amud Aleph. Really, we're going to go back to our first approach. Our first approach was that of Abaye, and that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir were arguing about whether or not the Shivrei Kalim could do their original purpose or to be functional in a different way. That's what we're talking about. Uve'ose maise tafka. We're talking about a different type of cooking. It's a cooking that heats on the outside of the utensil as well. So says the Gemara, Rav Meir, Ledvar of the Rabbi Yehuda Kamar, and Rav Meir was pushing Rabbi Yehuda on his own terms. Lididi, says Rav Meir, according to me, afilu ba'osin me'ein malacha. When I see Shivrei Kalim, says Rav Meir, as long as they're functional in any way, even if not specifically the way in which the initial kli was made, I'm still going to assume that that has the status of tamei, that it has the status of a kli. Ela lididach, but according to you, Rabbi Yehuda, Odi li miha, you should at least admit to me, that in this case, in this special type of cooking of tafka, when you're cooking with the heat specifically on the outside, admit to me that it's malachtahu. Admit to me that this is a normal use, that in the world of Shivrei Kalim, it would be considered a thing. Admit to me that it's actually the thing. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, lo dami, I don't agree with you. That's not the cases of the regular cooking of tafka. In our case, they're not the same. Hasam haskum yidifnim. In the case of the initial kli, we were cooking inside, and now you're cooking outside. By the case of tafka, haskum yibachutz, you're cooking on the outside. Hasam u'umad, hacham lo mu'ubad. And here, one is an upstanding oven, and one is not an upstanding oven. So there were differences. So therefore, this is the machlokas we presumably we were to be learning this in just the flow of the Gemara with no Rishonim, it seems to be that the Gemara concludes that that the machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir in regards to the Tosefta, just looking back up at the Tana Rabbana by the two dots, that the machlokes of Shivrei Tanu Yashan has to do with the machlokes of Meir Rav Yehuda. This is within Rav Ashi's world, about whether or not we look at the Shivrei Kelim to be as functional as the original Kli, or would any type of function be considered okay, Rav Meir being the latter and Rav Yehuda being the prior. Let's continue now with the two dots. We're right toward the bottom of the page on Kuf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph. Hey Rabbi Yossi Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Ben Yaakov Al Shivrei Toner Yashan Shenidlim Shabbos Val Kisuv Shenon Tzarach Beis Yad. This is a quote from our Mishnah, which indicates that one who has a cover that does not have a handle on it, so we still treat that as a kli. Amaravina Kiman. Who do we hold like to say that this is considered a kli? Answers the Gemara, Kiman, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. That's like the sheet in our Mishnah, and the people in the city of Matmachasya were dependent on that sheet of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov to say what? To say that even though there's no handle on it, Afal Pikein is still considered to be a kli. Baruch Hashem, we're at the Mishnah at the very bottom of Kuf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph. Let's continue. However, shebekiruya. This is like, let's say, for example, you took a watermelon and you cut it in half and you carved out all the watermelon. And then what you would do is you take a rock and you put it in there to make it a little bit more weighty. You want it to be a little bit heavier. If you add water to your new homemade kli of a watermelon being your vessel, if you add water, and the rock does not fall out, so then the din is memalin, but it's mutter to use, even though rocks, technically speaking, are otherwise muksa. But here it would be permissible because the rock is not falling out. V'im lav, if it's not the case that the rock won't fall out, it's funny here because v'im lav means that if the rock will fall out, so you got to follow the flow here. Ein memalin, but then you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos. Turning to the top of Kuf Chav Hey Amud Beis. Continues the Mishnah, Zemura, if you have a vine, sheikshura betafiach, that's tied onto a pail to be used in a well, memalin ba b'Shabbos, you're allowed to use that on Shabbos. We'll have to see, is this connected to the ground? Is this not connected to the ground? We'll have to get into that. Pikak be'achalon, let's say you have some type of covering over the window. So what about that? Rabbi Eliezer, Omer bizman shikashra b'toli pokin. Rabbi Eliezer was of the opinion, when do we say that you're allowed to use this covering over the windows, these shutters? That's true when it's tied and still hanging off the ground, meaning it's not like laying on the ground free. It's attached in some way to the house, and that's why you're allowed to put it back. Mashe'en Kain says the last line of this Mishnah, 4 lines down on Kuf Chaf Hey Amud Beis, the Chachamim omrim ben kach uben kach pokikin, but even if it's sitting freely on the ground, one is still allowed to utilize that and to cover their windows with it. Gemara opens up 5 lines down. Tanan Hasam, we learned even shal piachavis. If you have a rock, a stone that was put on top of a barrel, so mata al tzida v'hino felis, you're allowed to tilt it over. You're allowed to tilt over the barrel, and the rock is allowed to fall. So 2 sheets is here. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rabba says that Rav Ami said in the name of Rav Yochanan. Rabba was 4th century. Rav Ami was 2nd century. Rav Yochanan was really 1st century of the Amoraim. So what was going on here? So we're really talking about the Shita of Rav Ami, as we'll see shortly. But anyways, this first Shita says, Lo Shanu, this din about tilting over the barrel in order to be able to access the wine, Lo Shanu ela b'shocheach. The only time you're allowed to be matel tzida, otherwise it should be aser. The only time you're allowed is if you forgot. But if you did it on purpose, aval b'meniach, nase basas l'davar aser, we've seen this idea a few times. If you intentionally put something muksa on top of something which is not muksa, let's say on a table, whatever, or on something portable. You have a chair that you want to sit in, and you intentionally put a bag of money on the chair before Shabbos. B'chavana. So that's bastes l'davar ha'aser. You're not allowed to move the chair. You made that problem. But when you're shochech, that's different. That's when we have leniency. So that's what the Gemara says here. You forgot about the stone that's on top of the barrel, and therefore you're allowed to move it. Mashein Ken, if you did it on purpose, then it's bastis l'davar ha'aser, and therefore it cannot be moved. That's the shita of Rabbah in the name of Rav Ami in the name of Rav Yochanan. However, Rav Yosef Amar Rav Asi Amar Rav Yochanan Lo Shanu ela b'shocheach. We only learn this din. It's true when you forget. Aval, and the exact opposite of what Rabbah said. B'meniach, when you do it on purpose, when you take a stone before Shabbos and you intentionally put it on a barrel, what's the din? Nasa kisui lachavis, that it becomes mutter legamre. It's a wild idea. We don't ever assume this, that you take something muksa that automatically becomes a mutter. It's a little bit of an out there shita, a little bit unique. And that is the shita of Rav Yosef, says the Gemara, and each of them asking on their own against themselves from our own Mishnah. What was Rabba's opinion? Rabba said that when do we say that you're allowed to tilt the barrel to get the stone off? That's b'shocheach. However, if you did it on purpose, it would be a basis l'davar ha'aser. So says Rabba as follows: Amar Rabba mosvin and ashmait, and I have to ask a question of myself. What did we learn in our Mishnah? Even shebekiruya, that if you take a stone and you cut out a watermelon, carve out all the fruit, and you use the stone there to weigh it down, what did we say there? That if you can fill it up, and the rock won't fall out, then it's mutter to use. Why is it mutter to use? We just learned the case of the chabis that when you put it there intentionally, it becomes a basis l'davar ha'aser. So why in our Mishnah is the case of the watermelon with the rock in it? Why is that not basis l'davar ha'aser? It's the same thing. You added a rock to the watermelon, you put a rock on top of the barrel. Why by the barrel is it basis l'davar ha'aser, but not by the watermelon? So says Rabbi answering his own question, below here it's not a problem. Because the rock that's inside the watermelon is kind of wedged into the rind of the watermelon. It's really pressed in there. It's not floating around freely. So therefore it becomes a part of what you're doing and it loses its status of muksa. Namely, rocks are not inherently muksa, according to this approach. It just depends on how they're used. So that's the first question that was asked by Rabba against himself, and he answered. Amar Rav Yosef, I am also going to ask a question against myself and answer it. Umosvina nashmais, and I'm going to ask the same thing and from a similar part of the Mishnah. What was the second sheet of Rav Yosef? Rav Yosef held that a bishocheach, when you forget something, so then nevach, the only way to get the wine is to tilt over the barrel to let the rock fall off. However, if you put it there on purpose, then it becomes a kisui, then it becomes the covering of the barrel. So asks the Gemara, what did we learn in our Mishnah? We learned 1/3 of the way down on Kuf Chaf Hem Beis Im Lav, that if the rock won't stay in, if the rock is going to fall out, ein memalan ba, that you're not allowed to fill it up. So what do we see there? That if the rock is going to fall out, so then the halacha is that it's muksa. But what did Rabbi Yosef say about the rock on top of the barrel? That if you put it there on purpose, it's the cover. It's not muksa. So which one is it? Do we say like the barrel, like Rabbi Yosef was saying, that if you did intentionally put it there before Shabbos, it becomes the kisui? Or no? Do we say a little bit differently? Do we say, like this case here in our Mishnah, where our Mishnah said that if you put a rock inside the rind of a watermelon, there we say that you're not allowed to use it if the rock's going to fall out. Do rocks make things muksa? Yes or no? So answers the Gemara, Velohi. There really is no comparison between these two cases, says Rav Yosef. Why? Because Hasam Kevin Delohad Kabatule Badla. Because it's the exact opposite svar from Rabbah. But what does Rav Yosef say? That the fact that it's not hadka, the fact that it's not tightly on there. So Batule Badla, it's as if it doesn't exist. You threw it in there just for weight purposes. It just kind of blends into the background, even though it's not wedged in there, specifically not wedged in there. So that's what's going on there. But my kamiflage, what are Ravami and Ravasi talking about? These two different shitas that Rav Yosef and Abai spoke about. What are they arguing about? Answers the Gemara, Mar Savar Ba'inan Maisa, Mar Savar Lo Ba'inan Maisa. One person says that in order to make something mutter to use, you need a Maisa, and the other one says you don't need a Maisa. They both follow their own opinions. There's a story that supports each of their opinions. Right halfway down the page, Rabbi was walking and he found a pile of stones. And he said to them, I want you to prepare these for tomorrow. How did he ask them to prepare for tomorrow? Just go think about them. All you have to do is think about it. This was like the shita that you don't need to do a ma'aseh to make something permissible to use on Shabbos. You just have to have kavanah. I'm intending to use that tomorrow. Must speak. That's enough to transfer that thing into what we would call muchan. Now that's enough. I just have to think about it. There's a rock outside. I plan on using it as a paperweight. I want to learn Gemara outside tomorrow morning. I know it's going to be windy. I want a paperweight. So I have kavanah. That's it. That's all I need. So says the Gemara. That was. I'm sorry.
Like Machshava Kamaisa.
Something like that. Well, I mean, in Lamdus, we could not say that because here specifically we're saying that there is no Maisa. It's just Machshava, really. I hear where you're going in concept, but this is
Yeah.
specifically, the language here is specifically that we don't need a Maisa at all in order to make something usable on Shabbos. So if I have a rock outside that I want to use as a paperweight,
But
I
you're
look
thinking
outside,
about it.
yeah, but it's not Kemaisa.
So,
It's just the Machshava makes it Muchan. The Machshava makes it Muchan. But again, in concept, you're right. I don't mean to be...
could that be a takeoff for that then? I mean,
It can't be here, because here the language was specifically used by the Gemara that we're specifically not looking for a Maisa. Your Machshava is alone. In other words, in Lumdus, we would say that to make something not Muksa before Shabbos, we specifically don't need a Maisa. We only need your Machshava. So that would be one approach here. That's the way that we would view the Shita of Rabbi. So let's get back inside here. So Rabbi said, okay, well, he told him to go outside. Rabbi said, I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to think. That's all you need to do. No, Rabbi Yochanan said, you guys misunderstood the story. You're not quoting it correctly. And Rabbi did require a Maisa. My Omar Luhu, what did he tell them to do? So Rabbi Ami, Omar Tzu Vilimdum, go out there and physically arrange all of the seats. Go out there, pick up chair number 1 or whatever, block of wood number 1 that would have otherwise have been muksa, and move it to the right spot. Go do it. The Amar Lu, that's what he said to them. Ravasi Amar, we only need to do like a little nothing, just wipe them off a little bit. You don't need to move them. That's not really a maisa be'etzem to the item. You're cleaning off the top from some of the dust. So, but you're not moving the item, so there's no maisa there. So these are the two shitas that we just saw. Itmar, what type of material were we talking about that they were looking at? What were they looking at? So there's two different possibilities. Itmar, Rav Yossi ben Shol Amar Soar Shel Koros Hava, it was a stack of boards. Rav Yochanan Amar, Rav Yochanan ben Shol Amar Gishosh Shel Sfina Hava. This was a measuring stick that was used on a boat to see how deep they were in the water. This was one of the tools they would use to prevent the front of their ship from hitting ground in a way that would be damaging. They'd stick the pole in. Okay, we're 10 feet down, we're 15 feet down. Like in construction sites, that's how they know how much to tell the trucks to dig. They say, they have a ruler that keeps on rolling deeper into, but now they use lasers, whatever it is. So that's what they were using in the water. So these were the two possibilities of what Rebbe was talking about, either a stack of boards or this measuring stick for a boat. And this is what we were talking about. Do we need a maisa? Do we not need a maisa? And then just says the Gemara in conclusion in this part of the sugya, Man Amar, a gishosh, one who's talking about this measuring stick, kol shekain soar, he would all the more so agree that whatever works for one would work for the other, would work for the stack of boards, but in reverse, not true. Uman Amar soar, the one who says that Rebbe was talking about a case of a stack of boards, aval gishosh kapid alai. There's something more unique about the measuring stick. It's not just a regular piece of wood, it's a measuring stick. It has markings on it, however they built it, but it's more unique, and therefore you can't extrapolate from a stack of boards that the same halachos would apply to a kli that has a unique function to it in that it's something that measures. That brings us to the two dots, 2/3 of the way down on Kuf Chav Hem and Beis. Let's keep plugging away. Zemura Sheikh Shura, we spoke about in the Mishnah. It's actually the very top words of the Mishnah of this page on Kuf Chav Hem and Beis. That if you have a vine and it's tied to a bucket, the Mishnah said Mamalan Ba B'Shabbos that you're allowed to use it to fill things up. Says the Gemara, Kshura in, lo Kshura lo, only if it's actually tied. But if it's not tied, then you're not allowed to do it. So says the Gemara, Lema masnisin dolk Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. It must be that our Mishnah is not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Why? Where does Reb Shimon ben Gamliel differ from our Mishnah? The Tanya. This is a Gemara that we saw already. How many blot ago? We saw this 74 blot ago. I'm sure you all remember it, Balpeh. Charios shel dekel shegidron le'etzin. Let's say that you have pieces of wood that you were planning on using for fuel, for firewood. And then v'nimlach aleim lishiva, you change your mind. You're like, you know what? I think I want to use them for a chair. We're all going to have shir tomorrow, and I want to sit on the firewood. It'll be more comfortable than anything else. Sarach likshor, the din is that you need to tie them together before, and that's shita the Tanakama. What does Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer? Ein sarach likshor. You don't need to tie something in order to undo the status of muksa. Similar to the machlokas we just saw between Rabbi and Ravasi. So here, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel was of the opinion of Ein Tzarech Likshor, that you can just repurpose them. So that's the Gemara's question. Do we say that our Mishnah is specifically not like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel? Yes or no? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Sheshes, about 12 lines from the bottom of Kuf Chav Hem and Beis, Amar Rav Sheshes, Afilu Tamer Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, we could even argue that our Mishnah, which requires a Maisa, that the Zemura, that the grapevine actually be tied, There, we could even say it's like Shimon ben Gamliel, who doesn't require kshira by the charios shel dekel. Why? How do we figure that out? It's still attached to the grapevine. So what do you mean it's still attached to the grapevine? You're not allowed to use something that's attached to the ground. Asks the Gemara, if you're saying that it's still attached to the grapevine, you're not allowed to use something that's attached to the ground. We in fact have a specific Isser Derabanan to even lean on a tree. We don't use trees at all. A person wants to sleep on a hammock that's attached to a tree. It depends how you attach the hammock. If you tie it around the tree with a string, and then the hammock continues, and then you tie it around another string, another tree, that's usher. Now, if you tie it up against a hook that's in the tree, that's mutter, because it's a double derivative from the tree. But the tree itself, we have an Isser Derabanan. You're telling me that you can use a Zamora, you can use a grapevine on Shabbos, it should be mamish and Isser Derabanan. So what is it exactly that you mean that you're allowed to use a Zamora on Shabbos? Answers the Gemara, Lamata Mishlosha. We're talking about a case where all of this is so close to the ground that it is not problematic. Take a look at Rashi. Toward the bottom, 3 lines into the middle, with lines about 10 lines from the bottom of the page. Dibur Hamaschil, Lamata Migimel. Says Rashi, Samuch lekarka, uchegon lishav min hamayan she'eno amok. You're drawing up from a source of water that is not deep. Umutter lihishtamesh be'ilan lamata migimel, and one is taka allowed to use something which is still attached to the ground as long as it is less than gimel tvachim. The Perek Basra, the Eruvin will learn this in another 130 blot or so. Hayushrashav gavoim min haaretz gimel lo yeshev alein. That you can only not sit on something when it's more than 3 tvachim off the ground. But if there's a tree stump that's less than 3 tvachim off the ground, you're just taka allowed. So that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Must be talking about an ukimta where we're less than 3 tvachim from the ground. Okay. Says the Gemara, there's another way that we could understand how Rav Shimon ben Gamliel would fit into our Mishnah. We may even be talking about a case with this grapevine case. We may even be talking about a case where the grapevine is separated. And how would that work? Because in that case, there I'm afraid that you may end up tearing off another branch that is attached. There we have a concern. And that's why Rav Shimon ben Gamliel doesn't require by charios shel dekel, because there's no concern about tearing anything out. But here in our Mishnah, we do require that it be tied down because it's a different case. In other words, we're making a distinction between the cases. In the case of charios shel dekel, where Shimon ben Gamliel does not require you to tie around the wood in order to make it into a chair, that's because he's not concerned about you doing any other malacha. Masha'en kain, in our Mishnah, where you're using a grapevine, we're very concerned about the fact that you might do another malacha, and therefore even Rav Shimon ben Gamliel would agree that there's a din derabanan in our Mishnah that the zmura has to be tied to the pail properly. Otherwise, we're concerned about you making a mistake. 2 dots, 8-9 lines from the bottom of Kuf Chav Hey and base, getting there, almost done. Amar Rabba bar Barachana, Amar Rav Yochanan, Akol Modim She'ein Osin Ohel Arai B'Tchila B'Yom Tov. Everyone agrees that you should not be making a temporary tent, a temporary Ohel B'Tchila B'Yom Tov, an umbrella, whatever the case may be. You should not be doing that on Yom Tov. Ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbos, and that's all the more so true in regards to Shabbos. Lo nechlaku, where do the Chachamim argue? There's only a machlokas in regards to whether or not there's an isser to add on to an existing ohel already, to add on to an existing tent. Rabbi Lazar Amar ein mosifim b'yom tov ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbos. Rabbi Lazar's oser. The Chachamim mosifim b'Shabbos. The Chachamim felt that it was mutter to add even on Shabbos. Ein tzarich lomar b'yom tov. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. Leisman de palik. Everyone agrees that there's an isser to build an ohel arai, even that which is temporary. You're not allowed to. Are your kids allowed to build a fort on Shabbos? It's arai. Unless they plan on leaving it up till Tuesday, then it's not arai. But if they're going to be building a tent, is that mutter? So this is one of the sugyas that would help us and learn about that. Nevertheless, we paskin like the Chachamim that once it's already up, so then the din is that we're mosifim b'Shabbos mitzrach l'mar b'yom tov. You're allowed to add to an ohel arai.
How about a snow fort, like
outside?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably a different issue of possibly bona. You're creating shapes in the snow. You're also melting snow with your bare hands. That's a Gemara in Shabbos we learned earlier on the Mems, I think. can't remember exactly where it was, about melting
We're just
snow
rolling it
intentionally on
together.
Shabbos.
But the Maisa, there's a Maisa.
Yeah.
We're
The
rolling
poskim
rolling
do
the
write
snowball.
that that you are allowed to potentially salt snow on Shabbos. There are some kulas like that, but to actually shape out snow into something would not be allowed. Again, I can think of a
shovel
variety
snow
of
too.
problems, but I'm not exactly sure which one would be the one.
You could shovel snow too.
Poskim discuss that also. Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously
so I'm
not to
saying,
make a specific shape, but and of
you
course you have the
dump
same.
stuff on top
You
and you
also have the
make
same.
the wall.
You also have the same eruv shilas as well, whether or not if you're in an eruv,
Okay.
not in an eruv. All
Providing you're
those
in the
questions.
roof.
Obviously, provided that. Okay, so let's continue. The two dots here are now going to question the sheet of the Chachamim. So in order to understand this, let's just quickly look back up at the Mishnah at the top of the page. And we were talking about these shutters that we wanted to put back in place on Shabbos. And on the second line of this page, it says that Rabbi Eliezer was of the opinion that it had to still be connected to something in order to still be of use. And if it wasn't connected, then you're not allowed to use it. And then the last line of the Mishnah says, and we're going to pick up here right now about the second to last line of the page, the Chachamim omrim ben kach u ben kach, either way, you are allowed to use it. Now, this either way is difficult to understand because the Mishnah spoke about two things. It spoke about kashur, it spoke about being tied, and it spoke about being talui, which is that it's hanging. So which one is it? Is it one or is it both? So that's not so simple, and it's going to take us to the bottom of Kuf Chavav and Aleph, and then we'll wrap up for the evening. Says the Gemara, "My ben kach u ben kach." What does he mean by ben kach u ben kach? What was the Chachamim? What were they intending? So this is going to be a machlokas, as we will see. Here is Shita number one. Shita number one, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Kahana, turning to the top of Kuf Chavav and Aleph. Bein kashur, bein she'eino kashur. It doesn't make a difference if the shutter is tied. Behu shemesukan. Provided that, take a look at Rashi on the top line, the second Rashi on the page. Dibur hamaschel behu shemesukan muchan me'esmo lekach. If in fact you had intention, however we determine that something is no longer muksa, if you had intention that this is supposed to be a covering for your window, behu shemesukan, that you had intention for that, so then we don't care if it's tied on at all. It can be totally freestanding. The shutter doesn't have to be attached to the house to be replaced. That's the shita of the Chachamim, according to this first answer of Rabbi Abba in the name of Rav Kahana. Amar le Rav Yirmiyah, maybe you're wrong, Rav Kahana. Maybe you're not right. Vilema mar, maybe we should say, bein talui uvein she'eno talui v'hu shekashur. Whether or not it's tied is not a question. It has to be tied. The only question is talui ve'eno talui. Is it yet flat on the ground, or is it still leaning up against the building? To Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rav Yochanan, because in this regard, Rav Yochanan said, Rabba bar Chana said in the name of Rav Yochanan, that kimachlokes kan, just like the machlokes we have here in our Mishnah with Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, kach machlokes bin nagar hanigrar. The same is true. This was the lock we spoke about yesterday that was wedged into a door to keep the door closed. So there, whatever the machlokes is here, by Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, the same is going to be the machlokas over there. What was the machlokas over there? It's not. The Mishnah writes, 5 lines down, Kuf Chavav Aleph. Nagar hanigrar noalin bo b'mikdash. You are allowed to drag this particular lock. You can't carry it in full in the mikdash. Aval lo b'medina. Now, we know this distinction of ein shvus b'mikdash, that when you're in the base of mikdash, we typically assume, though there are exceptions, that there are no isurei derabanan that exist in the mikdash. One of the rationales in the Rishonim is that Kohanim is Rizenheim. This is something that we've spoken about in this Masechet already, about whether or not it's accurate that Kohanim are Rizenheim. But assuming that they are, this is one sheet in the Rishonim, that's why we don't have Shvus b'mikdash. There are no Isurei Derabanan. So that's what's happening here. Ditznan, we allow for you to drag it, which would otherwise be an Isurei Derabanan. You can drag the wedge, you can drag the lock around the Beis HaMikdash in order to lock a door, whatever it was. Avalo b'Medina, but outside the Beis HaMikdash, you weren't allowed to use it all. V'hamunach kan v'kan aser. This is very important. This was a shita of the Tanna Kama, of the Rabbanan here. V'hamunach kan v'kan aser, that when this item, the door is resting on the floor entirely, it's not leaning against a wall, it's not tied to anything, then even in the mikdash, it's going to be usher to move. Just like that, this is the question he's asking on the previous sheet of Rav Kahana. Because what did Rav Kahana say? That even when it's untied, it's just lying on the floor, you can use it. So this sheet of the Rabbanan is the question against that shita. But let's continue that Mishnah either way. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Hamunach, there's a gears to change here. Hamunach mutter b'mikdash. If it's resting on the floor, it is permissible in the mikdash. V'anigrar b'medina, and dragging it in the Medina would be a separate din because mikdash and Medina always are different. Tanya, and we learned Ezu Nagar Hanigrar Shanolan Bo b'mikdash v'lo b'medina. What is the case that we have where something can be dragged that's allowed to be used as a lock in the base of mikdash v'lo b'medina, but not outside? Answers the Gemara, Kol shekasher v'taloi b'rosha magia la'aretz. Anything that's still tied on, v'taloi b'rosho, and it's still leaning against the wall, v'rosh magia la'aretz, v'taloi, b'rosh magia la'aretz, and it's close to the ground. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, zeh af b'medina mutter. That would even be mutter, even outside, as long as it's still tied. Ele'ezu sheb'medina aser. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, what then would be forbidden outside the Beis Hamikdash? Kol she'eno lo kasher v'lo talui v'shamto manichu b'keren zavis. What would be forbidden according to Rabbi Yehuda? What would be forbidden is something that's not attached at all, that's lying flat on the ground. Ve'omer Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba mishmei de'ula man tana nagar hanigrar. Who's the Tanakama of that Mishnah? Rabbi Eliezer. That's a sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. Now here's where the brains come in. This is not simple. It took me a long time to figure this out, and I was reading it in English. It still took me a while. So Rabbi Eliezer is the Tanakama of this Mishnah. And Rabbi Yehuda says that even something that is completely untied is usher. If that's the case, then when we bring it back to our Mishnah has no precedent. You can't have a shita that says, the first shita that we learned, Rabbi Abba Amar of Kahana, on the top of this page, that says that even when it's completely untied, there is no shita like that in the Tanaim. Because if it's correct that there's an equivalence between the machlokas of Nagar HaNigrar and our Mishnah, and there's no shita over there that allows something to be completely untied, then over here, that can't be completely untied either. So that's what the Gemara is asking here. Amar Le, he answers him, this is now... who's talking? This is Rabbi Abba bar Rav Kahana. Rabbi Abba Amar Rav Kahana is answering Rav Yirmiyah's question. Rav Yirmiyah was asking a stark question. He had all of his ducks lined up perfectly. If it's true that the machlokas by Nagar HaNigrar is the same as it is by here, and over there it must be tied to something, then Rabbi Abba bar Rav Kahana can't say that it's tied to nothing. You need a precedent in the Tanaim. So he answers, I do have a precedent in the Tanaim. Again, this is Rabbi Abba Amar of Kahana answering 2/3 of the way down, Kuf Chavav Amar Aleph, and he says, Amar Le, Ona da Amri Ki Tana. I hold like one of the Tanaim in the following brisa. Kana sheiskinu balabais lios poseach v'noabo. There's a particular stick that was being used to open and close a door. Bisman shekashur v'talui b'pesach poseach v'noabo. As long as it's tied to something, Tanakama. As long as it's tied to something, the din is that you can use it to be posech v'nobo. It can be a lock. Ein kashor v'talui. If it's not tied to anything, ein posech v'nobo. That's a shita of the Tanakama. However, and here is where Rabbi Abba says in the name of Rav Kahana, where his precedent is within the shita of the Tanaim to say that our Mishnah was talking about a case where the shutters were not tied to anything. This is the 4 lines from the bottom. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Misukan, as long as it's muchan, as long as you intended to use it, afal pi she'eino kasher, even if it's not tied at all. Beautiful. So we had a machlokas in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, looking at the very top of Kuf Chapei, just looking over to the right at the top, the last line of the Mishnah, line 4, says, V'chachamim omrim ben kach u'ben kach pokekin bo. And we had a machlokas. What does whether or not it's true mean according to the Chachamim? Rabbi Abba said, in Rav Kahana, it means that even if it's not tied to anything. And the second sheet of Rabbi Yirmiyah said, no, that's not true. It has to be tied to something. Answers the Gemara. You both have a precedent in the Rishonim, and you both can hold your own shitas. We will pause here, wishing you all a stunningly beautiful Shabbos. And Hashem will pick up Motzei Shabbos with Kuf Chavav Days, and with Kuf Chaf Zion, wishing you all a beautiful night.
A beautiful